This is the time of year when seniors get their acceptance letters back from colleges, and unfortunately, there's always usually disappointments. And this is a very emotional time for a lot of students, a lot of parents, and students kind of think of it like their whole career, their future depends on this and what college they get in. So let me speak to this a little bit, and let me give some encouraging words if I can, and let me tell you why you got rejected from these colleges, and probably it's not your fault, okay? But let me explain this a little bit. First of all, colleges do not accept students based on a linear ranking method. The best scores, the highest GPA, the highest test scores on top, the lowest GPA and the lowest SAT scores on bottom, and they just start selecting from the top down. This is not how they do it at all, okay? Now, there is, of course, a certain standard, a certain threshold that you have to meet, but this is more complicated than people think. It's not just a straight up numbers game, okay? So even if your GPA is high and your SAT was high, it's still very possible that you can get rejected. Even though it was a little bit lower than average, it's very possible that you can get accepted. So then people think, oh, so this is kind of like a lottery. You just kind of throw your number in there, you throw your head into the ring and you see what happens, and maybe you'll get it. Maybe it's just probability, maybe it's just chance. Well, it's not like that either. Every applicant, every student that is accepted intentionally. They're not accidentally accepted. They're not accidentally sort of, oh, how did this student show up here? Like, that doesn't happen, okay? They know what they're doing. They look at each student holistically, but there are certain situations in which lower scoring, lower GPA students get in because they have something else that the college wants. And this is the point that I'm getting to. You got rejected from colleges, yes, maybe because your scores were too low. Maybe, okay? So if you had a 3.5 GPA and you had a 1300 SAT and you applied to Harvard, you probably didn't get in, all right? So, but you may have had a 4.0 GPA and you had a very high, 1450. You had a 1500 SAT, and you didn't get into NYU. You didn't even get into a school that you thought you would get into, all right? And when you Google it, and when you look on the college website, you look at the average GPA and the average SAT, and you're like, I was above that. Why didn't I get in? Again, it's not just a straight up numbers game. So let me just give you some background on how this works, how colleges determine who gets in, and you'll see that you have less control over this than you thought or than you think, okay? So colleges are businesses. Please understand, colleges are businesses. Colleges do not have your best interests at heart. They have their best interests at heart, okay? And quite honestly, frankly, this sounds a little cold, but they don't really care about you, okay? They don't look at each individual student. They don't really care about you as much as you might think. They care about them. They care about their reputation. They care about their rankings. And they care about their revenues and the monies that will come into their business. And so you just play the role of whether the college thinks you would be a good fit into meeting their goals, okay? Their interests, not necessarily yours. So colleges first are looking for a very diverse freshman class, all right? Think about it like this. When I was an engineer, when I was working for the Boeing company in Seattle, we had a team of engineers, and some of us were very like type A personalities, like I'm sort of like that. But there were other colleagues who were just sort of laid back and, more chill. So we were having this conversation with our boss, and our boss says, hey, we just recruited this new guy. We just hired this new guy. His name was Matt, and Matt became one of my good friends. But Matt was very chill. He was not type A personality, okay? He was just very chill, very relaxed, but he was a very smart guy. And so our boss said, hey, we can't have all type A personalities here. We got to mix it up a little bit, okay? Because the team dynamic, the team work sometimes works better when you have different kinds of people. So, and it's the same thing. When we were choosing people, not I, but when our bosses were choosing people, I went to the University of Washington. I was a local engineer in Seattle, but I worked with people from Purdue in Indiana who graduated from Purdue in Indiana. I worked with colleagues who graduated from Georgia Tech in Georgia. I worked with colleagues who went to all kinds of schools all over the country. Even a guy who went to the Minnesota School of Mines in Minnesota, okay? I didn't even know there was such a school. And I worked with another colleague who was from Michigan State University and others from MIT and on and on and on, all over the country. Why? Because they're trying to develop or create a diverse engineering team, okay? Colleges are not so different. Colleges, when they're accepting students and they're looking at whom to accept into that freshman class, they're looking for diversity. They're not going to get everyone from California. They're not going to get everyone from Virginia. They're going to get someone from Virginia, some from Alaska, some from Singapore, some from Australia, some from Denmark. And you're going to get black students and white students and Hispanic students and American Indian students, and you're going to get Asian students, and you're going to get all kinds of students, okay? You're going to have students who are disabled, who have disabilities, and they're trying to get some from low, socioeconomic backgrounds, and some who are from very wealthy families, and some whose parents didn't go to college at all, some whose parents are professors. They're trying to get a good mix. They don't want all history majors. They need some history. They want some psychology. They want some mathematics. They want some medical engineering. They want philosophy majors. They want art majors. They want creative writing majors. They want engineering majors. They want pre-med. They want all different kinds of students, okay? So if you understand this, you begin to realize, and also realize this, they can only have a certain number of students in their freshman class. So let's say they can only accept 15,000 students, but 50,000 students apply. So what happens? You may have gotten rejected just because there wasn't enough spots. There just wasn't enough space. There's not enough room. Okay, you may have been an excellent candidate. You may have hit all the numbers. You may have done great. You may have great extracurricular activities, and everything was great. Your application was great, but there were 20,000 other applicants just like you. They have to cut somebody, and maybe you're from a state, and they say, we already got a lot of people from that state. We got to start getting someone from Wyoming. We need someone from South Africa. Okay, so you're now out of the mix. You're now not in the running anymore. It has nothing to do with you. It was not your fault. It wasn't because you did poorly, but it wasn't because you filled your application out incompletely. It wasn't because you wrote a terrible essay. It wasn't because your scores were low. It was because they just already have a lot of people like you, okay? And you just didn't fit into the diverse, freshman team, if you will, that they wanted, okay? So, and I've talked about this in previous videos, but there is an advantage for you if you're an underrepresented minority. And when I say underrepresented minority, everybody thinks of race, okay? Historically underrepresented minorities are minorities like African Americans or Hispanics or Native Americans, okay? But I'm not talking necessarily about just that. And those certainly are racial minorities in college admissions, but there are others. Like if someone is, let's say, if you're applying to a predominantly white school and you're an Asian student, if you're applying to a historically black college and university, let's say, and you're a Caucasian from Europe, you have a better chance. Okay, if you're applying to a school or department in which is predominantly male and you're female, you have a little bit of an edge. On the other hand, if you're trying to get into a program or school that's predominantly female and you're male, you'll have an edge. And so this is what I'm talking about with underrepresented minorities. The thing is, though, most schools and most departments that most students apply to, they're not underrepresented minorities. Like, for example, Asians all apply to the same schools, right? Forget about Asians, just students in general all apply every single year to the same sort of grouping of schools, okay? Very rarely will you have a student who says, now I've had some in the past, but who says, oh, I want to apply to this school, and not a lot of students apply to that school, And when I do college lists, I try to, pick colleges for students based on their background, based on, their entire background, not just their GPA and SAT, because I understand this. It's not just about that. So, If you're an underrepresented minority, you have an edge somewhat, but there's no guarantee, okay? So if you got rejected, don't feel bad. If you know that your scores were higher, your activities were great, your application was just wonderful, and you know it was, and you wrote good essays, everything was good, but you got rejected. Don't let it hurt your pride. Don't let it hurt your, ego. Hey, my friend got accepted, but why didn't I get accepted? That is, it doesn't reflect on you. It doesn't reflect on who you are or what your performance is, how you did. You did wonderful, just like your friend, but there just wasn't enough space, okay? And it's very likely that you'll get accepted to another school and your friend may not get into that school, okay? So, but this whole measuring myself against other people, I wouldn't do that anyway, okay? Who cares where other people got into? Just focus on yourself. Just focus on where you got into. And always understand this. I always tell students, my own kids, myself as well, I always remind myself, you got to have perspective in life. There are people all over the world every single day who don't have food to eat, who don't have a place to live in, who didn't grow up in families like you and I did, in which we are really blessed and we can go to college and we can have opportunities, we can pursue our dreams. Some people, they just never even get that opportunity. Always remember this, okay? So going to college is not a right. Going to college is not something that you're entitled to. Going to college is a privilege. Going to college is something that you should be thankful for. And I'm always amazed every year. People say, oh, I only got into this school. I only got into that school. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You got into college. You should be very thankful. And this is another thing that I would say, and I've said this many times before, but I'll repeat it again. Where you go to college and the college name that you graduate with is not as important as you think. I know as a high school student, I know as a parent of a high school student, you might think that this is a life-changing event. If they got into this school, man, their life is going to be set. If they go to this school, on the other hand, I don't know, their opportunities may be limited. Trust me, that is not the case. Opportunities are only limited because of self-defeating mindsets that we have as individuals, not because of what school we went to, not because of the school name, the school rank, the school reputation. It's because of every person's own mindset. The greatest barrier and obstacle to life and achievement and success and reaching your goals is not what school you went to, it's what you got inside your head. And I'm talking about knowledge. I'm not talking about information that you've gained over the years from school. I'm talking about the kind of mindset that you have, what kind of attitude you have, what kind of grit and determination you have, and that kind of thing. It is not based on school. I worked in the corporate world for many years, and I worked in all different kinds of positions. I worked in government agencies, and local government, federal government. I worked in big global corporations. I worked in medium-sized and small companies. I worked in sales and recruiting and management, and I worked in engineering and consulting and instruction work. And I'll tell you this, I worked with all kinds of people, and I worked in Seattle on the West Coast. I worked here on the East Coast, and I met people from all over the country. And I can tell you from all different kinds of schools, and their success or my success was not dependent on what school I went to. It really was not. It was dependent on how well I did at what I did. It doesn't matter if I went to MIT. If I was not a very good engineer, my opportunities will be very limited. On the other hand, if you went to a quote, just state school, but you're a great engineer, you have great communication skills, you're very resourceful, you're very trustworthy, and you can fulfill your projects and complete them, with high quality work and on time and on, your opportunities keep going up. If you show leadership, your opportunities, they abound. So it's not based on what school you go to. I know this is not easy to hear. It may come in one year and go out the other if you're a high school student. But trust me, in the long run, in just a few years, you'll look back and think, I don't know what the big fuss was about. I got into college, I got into my major and I'm studying what I love to do. And I'm pursuing something that I'm going to love to do in my career. And I hope that's how you do it. And you go out in your career and you pursue what you love and you discover and you develop your God-given gifts and you go make a great career. And, that's what you do. and what school you went to, what college you went to, won't matter that much. I'm just saying, just have some perspective, and it's okay. Whatever college you got into, congratulations. You should be happy about that. You should be thankful. Don't compare yourself to other people. You're all fine. And probably you getting rejected had nothing to do with the quality of your application. All right. So I hope that's helpful. Listen to me. Trust me. I know what I'm talking about in this regard. All right. So don't feel down. Be encouraged. And I'll see you in my next video.